quick apology before I start, folks. I'm still suffering from Viking germs. I came back from Sweden with God knows what. So if I sound a little bit nasal, consider putting on character acting for a D&D review. I cast magic missile. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is TotalBiscuit. I'm here to ask and answer one simple question. WTF is Dungeons & Dragons Daggerdale? Well, it's reacting to the very important part of the market that believes that there are not enough Ds in video game titles these days. So this is D&D DD. Yeah. Which I might add is also sold on DD, digital distribution. Or, of course, it could be sold on direct-to-drive digital distribution, which would make it Dungeons & Dragons Daggerdale digitally distributed on direct-to-drive. Good God. Anyway, this is a hack-and-slash game based in the D&D setting of Daggerdale, which is to be expected based on the title. It has quests, it has 4-player co-op, it has hack-and-slashy action, and it is, as far as I can tell, basically Gauntlet. It's also not got any voice acting, it's all got grunting. It seems like, yeah, yeah, it sounds like The View or something like that. Yeah, that's terrible. Let's not do that. Right, merchants. I can buy things, wonderful. So, I'm playing a human fighter right here. You have 4 predetermined class race combos, which to me started off being fairly disappointing because the races and classes basically don't mean anything in that regard. Like, could I have a human warrior or a dwarf warrior? Would the dwarf warrior have some... No, you can't play a dwarf warrior. It doesn't let you. You have to play a human fighter. You've got to play a halfling mage, for God's sake. An elven rogue and some other thing that... I think it's a dwarf cleric, if I recall correctly. Right, speak to the merchant. What do we have? There's a club, a cracked dagger of the fallen, a short sword, which I actually already have. They gave me a kopesh as my first quest reward, which was absolutely fantastic, bearing in mind that it lets you pick your feats at the start of the game, and I picked one-handed blade specialization, so kopesh counts as an axe, so that is actually completely useless. Oh well, we deal with it. Anything useful here? Ooh, yes, that would be a nice item if I could be bothered with that. I don't really use ranged stuff. Hand axe, short sword, yep, nothing remotely useful. I already have a short sword, so none of these are going to be an upgrade for me, and this armor is way too expensive. So, never mind, I suppose. Right, into the unknown. I have to also point out a complete lack of music in this game. There's very, very little of it. So far, anyway. I went through the tutorial, 1, just to get the feel of it, and 2, because tutorials are boring to watch, and I'm going to try and avoid putting them in my videos entirely from here on in. Sounds like a fairly good idea. Okay, so that's a drill. Let me guess. We'll drill through here, we go through, and bad things happen. There we go, we actually have some music. This is the same music that we've had throughout the entire tutorial. Also, what the hell's wrong with his face? The texture work is very odd in this game. Yeah, dialogue, lots of dialogue. And, of course, no voice acting, so it's a bit of a pain. So, for a hack-and-slash game, in my first, 20 minutes, which is how long it took me to really make my way through the tutorial and muck about a bit, I've got to say that the actual combat seems really clunky. I'd like to give you an example here. So, you've got your basic attacks right here, but if you don't time the clicks exactly right, and you should just spam the clicks to make it work, because you think, oh, I've got it timed, generally speaking, it doesn't go off. But what's more important is the fact that you go through these animations for the special abilities. I've got 2 special abilities here. I've got shield bash and some spinny thing. They both pretty much do the same thing. I think one's got a stun component. And then if I try to attack afterwards, the animation seems to be shorter than the actual cooldown length. So let me try and demonstrate this for you. Okay, so I was clicking there for a good couple of seconds, and my fighter had to return to sort of a neutral stance and then waited a little bit longer before I could start attacking again, which again makes the entire thing clunky as hell. Like that, for instance. You probably heard me on the microphone frantically clicking after that, but say the animations are shorter than the time it takes for the fighter to be ready to swing again, which makes the whole thing feel incredibly clunky, which is not a good thing if you happen to be playing a hack-and-slash RPG and you want to play a fighter class. I would imagine the rogue probably has a similar issue. I think the cleric and the mage probably not so much. By mage, of course, I mean wizard. Oh no! Scripted rocks! Okay, so I guess I'm not going that way then. Across the bridge we go. We can't go across the bridge. Oh, there we go. Okay, we can go across this bit of the bridge. That was weird. Randomly stuck in the floor. How very, very bizarre. Okay, right, well, there are storage barrels to smash, which is, of course, vitally important in any hack-and-slash game. Yes, you haven't seen any enemies around yet. There are enemies, trust me. I did see some in the tutorial. They're definitely there. It's not all about smashing crates and barrels. Now, as to how long this game is, I don't know. I mean, I've been looking through a bunch of reviews because this is the kind of thing I can't really talk about too much in WTF is because I don't finish the game. It's just first impressions. So I'm thinking, oh, right, well, how long is the game? I actually don't know. People are saying, well, it's fairly lengthy, but I don't know what that means. No one was able to be specific on that issue. Ooh, a horrific battle axe of the fallen. Sounds absolutely fantastic, with the exception of the fact that I am not specialized in axes. So getting these drops is kind of useless. I suppose if I had party members with me, at least I could give them to those, but not at the moment, so that's probably going to have to be sold. So I get an attack bonus with blades, admittedly. I mean, it'll do a bit more damage still, but not really worthwhile. I'll just sell it. Okay, so we are freeing dwarves. Now, we actually did this already. This was the plot of the tutorial quest. We had to save dwarves, and now we have to save dwarves again, so... Yep, okay, whatever. It's fine. We do not care. This game, as far as I can tell, is fairly light on meaningful story. Doesn't help that it has basically no voice acting of any description. I understand that that costs money, but at the end of the day, this was a Atari-published game. You'd think that maybe, just maybe, they might have wanted to invest in their D&D titles. You should probably bear in mind that there hasn't been a D&D title for quite a while. Now, some people might say that this game's kind of based on Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance. I wouldn't say so. It's more based on Dungeons & Dragons Heroes, which, if I recall correctly, came out in 2003 and actually had exactly the same systems. It had 4 predetermined class-race combinations in exactly the same combo that there is in Daggerdale. So, it's more of a sort of hack-and-slashy Diablo-esque cross with Gauntlet. I'd say Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance actually has more complexity to it. It was good, actually. I enjoyed Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance quite a bit. Did I just teleport? I was only halfway across that bridge, I'm sure I was. Huh, that's weird. Okay. Scripted events for you, folks. Right. I have to say I'm not enjoying the combat in this game all that much. It doesn't help that my sword is really short. Admittedly, it is a short sword, so it's kind of to be expected, but still, the combat feels really clunky, and that's not good for a hack and slash. You've got to have really good combat. That's why I kept saying that Darkspawn was a good hack and slash game, because the combat really fluid, very slick. Here, not so much, no. It annoys me that often the guys are slightly out of my range. I'm swinging at them, they'll just take one step backwards, and suddenly I can't get to them. Kind of annoying. But again, I think it's probably because of the choice of weapon. I have to wonder if I'll find a longsword around here anywhere. Let's attack the storage barrels and see if we can find something like that. Now, the online system uses GameSpy, which might be a, oh god, don't do this warning for people. Oh, that doesn't look nice. That actually looks extremely unpleasant. Right, let's fight it, I suppose. No, gotta wait for scripted event first, then we can fight it. Ah, yeah. What? Why is he running away? What? 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 Are you serious? Dungeons & Dragons, the game of heroes, where a hero in a scripted event runs away from the boss that I actually kinda wanted to fight. What the Christ? Why would you do that? That is the lamest get out ever. I am forced by a scripted event to run away from a cool-looking boss after fighting a bunch of frickin' kobolds? Oh, that is not a good way to start your game. Oh, no, 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 no. I don't care about you. I wanted to fight the frickin' golem thing. Yes, that's wonderful. I suppose I'm going to accept the quest then. That has actually annoyed me probably more than it should have. But it really has irritated me. It's like, I wanted to get some combat. It's a hack and slash game. We're supposed to be fighting. Fight big boss. Huh? But no, we're gonna run into the portal. That is probably the most heinous example of scripted eventing I've ever seen. I mean, I've been on a rampage against scripted events lately, and in that case, that was just disgraceful. I mean, really. Now, I suppose the length of this game is probably there because you run around blowing up a lot of barrels over and over again. Apparently so. Lots of barrels. You know what? I'm going to stop attacking the barrels now because I actually don't care. Now, let's see if I can get a longer sword from this merchant. Oh, it's an armor merchant, so probably not. Hand axe, mace, lethal mace. Ooh, that's purple. That looks fantastic. Can I afford it? No, of course not. The horrific battle axe of the fallen. We shall sell that. You can also sell without prompt. That's kind of a nice feature. Always speeds things up just a little bit. Cracked cloth armor of the Pact. Sell that. Cracked lethal helmet. I mean, to be fair, with the amount of damage that I'm not taking here, I really don't care about these things, so I have to wonder if there's a vendor around here for weapons. That'll be quite nice. More barrels. My god, you dwarves like barrels, don't you? Evidently. Is there anything else interesting around here? Or am I just running around for the sake of it? Barrel, 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 mushroom! Nope, nothing interesting. And only one vendor, and it happens to be for armor, which is not what I'm looking for, so there you go. I'd also like to point out just how silly my hat looks. Yes, quite. I was wearing it for a bet, apparently. Okay. Dwarven cleric, why am I talking to this guy? I don't know, it won't let me talk to him, so I don't know why he's marked on the map, but whatever. Perhaps he's a healer, I suppose he could be. Okay. Let's go and get a quest and see if this game actually gets any more interesting. Now, it does have 4-player co-op, which certainly helps. In fact, I think it's going to be necessary because, near as I can tell, the single player isn't that fun to begin with. I have no willingness to stand here reading all of this stuff. There's a workers' revolt. I need to go talk to the union leader. You know, for a hack and slash game, this doesn't have a lot of hacking and slashing in it. Seems to be lacking in that regard. I think that's kind of the problem when you take a game like this and you try and pretend to be a serious RPG. You're not a serious RPG. You're far too limited. While we're going through this nonsense, I suppose I could tell you a little bit about the character creation. There's barely any of it. You can't customize your appearance in any way. You can't customize your class-race combination in any way. And you can't pick stats either. The stats are pre-assigned. Apparently you can add stats later on, but really you're only going to want to add, if you're a fighter, for instance, strength and constitution. There's no point in adding anything else. You can pick up feats, and you can put action points into a small selection of abilities, and that really is about it. Guess we're going to go slay some goblins. I wasn't expecting miracles from the class creation system for a game like this, but really that, I think, is a little bit too limited. I know they keep saying, well, we're going to put on DLC and we'll add all sorts of stuff. I was like, well, that's wonderful. I don't really care. Oh, how very amusing. Who keeps breaking my barrels? Yes, thank you for the self-referential wit right there. Right. Let's go and collapse some goblin mineshaft, shall we? I have very little interest in doing that, but hey. I think the boredom and the tedium really is starting to set in here. It doesn't help that the combat's rubbish. Maybe it's better with another class. I'm interested to see what it's like with a wizard, for instance. That might be kind of fun, but I've always found in games like this that I like to go for the physical classes, and the reason I like to do that... Oh, God, how much beating on this am I going to have to do? And the reason I like to do that is because equipment, like big swords and stuff, has more visible effect on a fighting class than it is on, say, a magic class. So that's why I like to do that. That's why I like to play those classes in hack and slash games. In this case, though, just because the combat system is kind of clunky and not particularly fun, it's not very fast either. It's really laborious. I mean, just killing this one goblin is taking me ages. In games like, say, Torchlight, for instance, which this game is obviously aping alongside obviously Diablo and things like that, you often had to deal with an awful lot of mobs at any given time, and you just usually carved your way through that. And yeah, there were tougher mobs, but in this case, it's taking upwards of 15 to 20 seconds to kill level 3 Goblin Blackblades or whatever, and they're no actual threat to you either. Now, I also have to wonder how well this game is really balanced in co-op mode. I can't make a comment on that, although I have seen in various reviews that the game is not balanced well around co-op and becomes incredibly easy. But we'll see. Ah, I think there's a vendor over there. Maybe he has weapons. Dwarven merchant that it won't let me speak to. What about if I stand back here? Here? No? Can I? Great. So I can't speak to him. Awesome. Even though I can select him, pressing the button doesn't work. Well, that's not good. Okay, I guess we're back to blowing up mine shafts then. Dungeons and Dragons. Tedium. Which is really what this is, honestly. It is a tedious example, and by the looks of it, a fairly bad use of the license. I mean, there's barely anything here that's D&D-esque. Now, I know this is also the first game that's based on the 4th edition rule set. Maybe it suffered for that, because I know there was a lot of rebellion against 4th edition. I know quite a few pen and paper guys actually went with Pathfinder instead, who thought it was that kind of system was much better. I mean, my knowledge of D&D really sort of centers around 3.5, and that's mostly just from playing DDO, which in many cases is actually quite faithful to the 3.5 rule set. In this case, you're obviously adapting 4th edition, but it just seems like the setting doesn't add anything to it, other than actually making it more boring. I mean, the first hour of the game is probably going to be stuck in mines fighting goblins, and not all that entertaining. Not at all. Which is problematic. If you're gonna make D&D into a game like this, you do have to maybe skip some of the really boring stuff, because you don't get the same RPG interaction that you would in the pen and paper, which will actually carry you through the let's go slay goblins because we're low levels kind of thing. In this case, it's just, you know, you can hear a savage clicking in the background as I beat my way through these mine shafts, and it's just taking so long to do nothing of note. It's very unfortunate when Atari and, of course, Wizards of the Coast license a game and it turns out to be dull as bricks. In this case, it really is. I'm not interested by it. I mean, the combat has no real weight behind it. As well as being clumsy, you just sort of feel like you're thrashing away at the air, and when you attack a monster, it doesn't really feel like you've hit him. Sound assets aren't all that great. Graphical quality, not amazing, average at best, really. Seems to be more focused around the idea of, hey, you do a special move, it's blue and shiny, Soul Calibur style. Yeah. Otherwise, it's just spam the button. Ah, crackling greatsword. I think I was actually... Was it crackling or cracked? It's cracked. Oh, well. Yeah, that's probably not as much use. We're going to equip it anyway, just because, hey... It's a two-handed weapon, which is not actually what I was designed around doing, which actually shows, because I'm doing even worse damage with this. The combat animations with this weapon suck! Oh my god. It is actually sparkling, so I have to wonder if it is crackling. That's oh, it's a cracked, crackling greatsword. Of course! How foolish of me. That's interesting. I can do shield bash without a shield. That's handy. Oh my god, I wouldn't want to be a two-handed character in this. How slow is this combat? We are on the moon! No. God. Yeah, news just in. Don't use two-handed weapons in this game unless you want to be bored to death. God, get the short sword out. At least that's a little quicker. This game has very little going for it, except for the price tag. Right? It's supposed to be a fairly lengthy game, and you're not paying an awful lot for it. If you're absolutely desperate for a hack-and-slash experience, then you might find it entertaining if you have friends to play with. If you don't have friends to play with, I would highly recommend you check out something that is better than this. As to what? Well, Darkspore being one of them. Torchlight being another. If you've not played Torchlight, then you're really doing yourself a great disservice, because it is absolutely fantastic. And it's often very cheap as well. It's usually cheaper than this game. It was about $20 when it came out, and it keeps ending up in $5 sales and things like that. Torchlight 2's up very soon as well, so I'm looking forward to getting my hands on that. But this is just... It's a waste of the license, and how many times have we seen that in the past? Hell, Duke Nukem Forever was a waste of the license as well. It's like, what an insult to the franchise in this case. I don't see how you can have a standalone game like this that has worse combat than the MMO version that came out like 4 years ago. And trust me, the combat in DDO is way better than this. It actually has more punch to it, it has more impact, and you'd expect less of that in an MMO. MMOs are generally really bad at doing that. In this case, it's actually the other way around. Turbine's produced an MMO that actually has very crunchy combat, and it feels very meaty, and it's got a lot of weight behind it, and it feels satisfying to pull off. And Bedlam, I believe, is the studio behind this, have succeeded in creating a hack-and-slash RPG that has some of the most boring combat I have ever seen. And hack-and-slash RPGs do rely on a good, weighty combat system with great feedback for a while, until you really start getting into the let's collect items metagame. At the start, the combat's got to be solid. In this case, it isn't. No, no, no. Not by any stretch of the imagination. The game is, as far as I can tell, just incredibly boring. So, you can have a look at it if you're interested in a bit of co-op, for instance. Admittedly, I've been told about numerous connection problems, and since it's on GameSpy, yeah. Those of you who've used GameSpy in the past, you're probably aware of the issues it's had. My god, Borderlands, when that launched, was awful. We had to do everything over Hamachi and nonsense like that, so that wasn't so great. But if you're interested in a little bit of co-op dungeon crawling, this is about $15, £10, about 15 euros. It's not terribly expensive, it's just is totally uninspired. I think that's the real problem with it. If you have a console, if you have a PS2, for instance, you should get hold of a copy of Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance, particularly Dark Alliance 2 if you can find it, because it's really good. Very, very good example of this. Daggerdale isn't. Daggerdale, I think, is really this kind of thing done wrong. It is just that boring. I mean, hell, I would have said the Dungeon Siege 3 combat was better than this, and a lot of people criticized that. This is even worse. Yeah, this is not the best return to form for D&D, I'm afraid. And even if you're actually hardcore into D&D, you'll probably enjoy this game even less because there's very little D&D in it. They've actually taken the worst bits out of D&D, i.e. the fact that everything's in a dungeon or a mine and really grey and kind of lacks colour and things like that. That's some of the criticism that was put forward for DDO, for instance. They've taken that, but they've added none of the good stuff either, so... yes. I am honestly not a fan of it. It's probably better in co-op. Admittedly, I don't even know anyone that owns this game, so good luck actually getting any co-op. But if you have friends that have it, it might be worth a look. As it stands, I don't really feel like playing any more of this. It's just a very uninspired and depressing experience. Also, weren't there 3 goblins there? Where the hell did they disappear to? Yes, evidently this game has a few bugs. My name is TotalBiscuit, and that was a look at Daggerdale. DDD. DDDD. D. I'll see you next time. No, seriously, look at this. Look, where is the frickin'...